Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. When Naomi Walker When she first entered the cafeteria at Roosevelt High School, she passed like a shadow. No designer clothes. No bright makeup. No cell phone in hand. Just a worn black backpack, a tray perfectly balanced between his slender fingers, and that upright, almost military posture that betrayed a discipline from elsewhere. She crossed the room without a word. Groups chatted, others burst out laughing, and gazes, like capricious spotlights, passed from one corner of the room to the other without ever stopping on her. In a world governed by appearances, Naomi was too neutral, too smooth, too Salento get attention. But someone noticed her. Jason Miller. Seated at his usual table in the center of the room, like an invisible throne, Jason dominated the space as he dominated the others. His deep laugh resonated loudly. His aura attracted. And in his wake, a small court of boys and girls laughed at his every remark, only too happy to be part of his kingdom. He had spotted Naomi from the first day. A new one. Discreet. Shy, he thought. Perfect. But what really bothered him was that she ignored it. She didn't lower her eyes when he passed by. She wasn't blushing. She was doing nothing. She erased it. And Jason, he couldn't stand it. Indifference. It was a silent insult. So he decided he was going to put her in her place. The fourth day on a rainy Monday, the cafeteria was packed. Voices mingled. Music drifted through poorly insulated headphones. The scent of greasy fries and overcooked pasta hung in the air. Naomi, true to herself, went to settle in a secluded corner at the back. A lonely table. An advanced biology book in hand, neuroscience and behavior, university level. She opened the first page while her fingers absent-mindedly picked at her steamed vegetables. And Jason watched him. He slowly chewed a slice of pizza, his eyes fixed on her like a predator amused by its prey. He waited for the right moment. And when he saw that Naomi was concentrating on her text, he stood up slowly, deliberately noisy. His friends fell silent, curious. He walked up to her. Head held high. Mocking gaze. Arrogance in every step. So you've decided to adopt a table? He asked, loud enough for the others to hear. Naomi didn't answer. Aren't you bored, all alone in your corner? Have you lost your friends? Oh no. You never had any, I guess. This time, she looked up. Slowly. His pupils met hers. No fear. No confusion. Just an icy, almost clinical neutrality. Are you looking for attention? She asked, her voice calm and non-aggressive. Jason gave a short, mocking laugh. No, you're the one who's going to get it. And in a theatrical gesture, almost choreographed for the audience he felt behind him, he grabbed the glass of water from his tray and knocked it over with a sharp thump in his book. Water ran down the pages, soaked the handwritten notes, splashed the notebook. The sound of falling glass covered the conversations for a moment. A brutal silence fell. Then the laughter. More Naomi. Don't shout. Don't back down. Made no gesture of panic. She gently closed her soaked book. Wiped the drops from the cover with a napkin. Then, without a word, raised her head. And fixed his eyes on Jason's. But this time, he felt a shiver. There was something in that look. Something that didn't shake. Something dangerous. You just made a very, very bad mistake, she murmured quietly. Jason rolled his eyes and shook his head with a smirk. Oh wow. I'm scared. Are you going to call the principal? What he didn't know was that the storm was not going to come from the administration. She was already there. Sitting in front of him. And it would only last 10 seconds. Naomi gets up. Without violence. Without abruptness. As if she had simply finished her meal. But in the precision of his gesture, there was something strange. a contained tension, a calm concentration. Jason approached, confident, a wide smile on his face, still thinking he was in control. He opened his mouth, ready to launch another barb. But he didn't even have time to breathe in. In a fraction of a second, Naomi stepped sideways, pivoting on her right heel with uncanny fluidity. His left arm grabbed Jason's just below the elbow, while his other hand gripped her wrist at a perfect angle. Before Jason understood what was happening to him, he felt his own weight shift forward. A dry sound, a caught breath. He hit the ground hard, his knee hitting the tiles with a dull thud. Naomi, unperturbed, had already locked her arm in an implacable lock, her elbow pulled upwards, her shoulder locked in an angle of controlled suffering. The king of the high school lay on the ground. Cheek against the ground, teeth clenched. And Naomi was still standing, leaning over him, holding his arm in a hold only an expert could have executed. The cafeteria, packed to the rafters, was frozen. No more laughter. No more voices. Just the discreet rustling of a cell phone that a student was taking out of his pocket to film. Jason tried to move, but the slightest movement intensified the pain. He let out a muffled moan. Naomi didn't raise her voice. She breathed calmly, as if all this was a routine exercise. Then, slowly, she spoke. Her voice, calm and perfectly controlled, cut through the silence like a scalpel. You make fun of others because you believe no one can put you in your place. You live in a world where no one has ever said no to you. She tilted her head slightly, bringing her face closer to Jason's. Error. Jason closed his eyes, his features distorted by a mixture of pain, rage, and, for the first time, of fear. Around them, some students had their mouths wide open. Others stared without blinking. A girl whispered. What just happened? It was then that Madame Reynolds, a biology teacher, appears from across the room. She ran between the tables, knocking over a tray as she went. Walker. Release him immediately. Naomi turned her head towards her. A simple look. No challenge. No aggression. Then she slowly loosened her grip, as if removing a fragile part from a complex mechanism. Jason rolled onto his side, panting. He held his arm to his side, his eyes wide, his breath short. His face was crimson, not just with pain, but with shame. He had been knocked down. Not hit. Not insulted. Knocked down. With precision. In front of everyone. And he knew it, everything had changed. The next morning, before the opening bell even rang at Roosevelt High, the corridors were already buzzing like an overheated beehive. Students huddled in small circles, their faces glued to their phones. Others whispered in each other's ears. Popular bands, nerds, artists, even teachers, everyone had seen the video. When the bully picks on the wrong girl. In less than 12 hours, the scene had gone beyond the walls of the high school. She'd found herself on TikTok, Instagram, even Twitter. Some edits slowed down Naomi's shot, breaking it down like a martial arts documentary. Others had turned her into a GIF. A meme. She moved like a pro. She's not a high school girl, she's John Wick in high school. Jason hit the ground faster than his brain could understand. But what made really blow the deal up, it was not the video itself. This was what was learned next. It all started with a simple comment under the video. Wait, isn't that Naomi Walker, Sergeant Elena Walker's daughter? Another confirmed, with a blurry photo from a 3-year-old article. Naomi, 13, on a jiu-jitsu podium, blue belt around her waist, gold medalist. Then the revelations came one after another. Sergeant Elena Walker, a former U.S. Army Special Forces instructor, decorated multiple times for her overseas missions. Close combat specialist. Single mother. A woman known for her high standards, and her military discipline. Naomi grew up in a strict but balanced environment. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., training. Jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, knife handling, disarmament techniques. At 12 years old, she had already mastered sequences that adults did not dare to attempt. At 14 years old, she had won 2 junior national jiu-jitsu championships, lightweight category. But there was another story. Most recent. A hushed-up incident, but never forgotten in its city of origin. One evening, 8 months ago, an armed man entered a small convenience store in Chicago, demanding the cash register under threat. Naomi, then out with her mother, found herself at the back of the store, stuck behind an aisle. The man approached a customer and shouted. His hand was shaking, his finger on the trigger. And as everyone froze, Naomi gets up. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She stepped forward. Silently. Calculated. In less than 4 seconds, she was on him. A precise sweep, a neck lock, disarmament. The weapon slid to the ground. The man was subdued, unconscious, without a single shot having been fired. The surveillance video was seized by the police. The story had not made the front page. But those who knew, knew. Those who grew up with Naomi described her as bright, reserved, focused. The convenience store incident had changed everything. She had become the dangerous girl, the ninja, the quiet psychopath. Some parents had called for his dismissal. Others avoided him in the corridors. So his mother had decided to move. New town. New high school. New opportunity. Naomi had agreed on one condition, that no one talk about her past. Let no one say anything about her medals. About her training. About what she knew how to do. She wanted to be normal. Invisible. Just another student. But fate had not decided so. Jason Miller was officially suspended for 2 weeks, accused of harassment and disturbing the peace. On paper, a classic punishment. A punishment that seemed, to many, light given his past popularity. But for Jason, the worst part was never the suspension. The weight of the gaze. What the fuck, the gaze of others. When he returned 2 weeks later, he immediately felt the change. The corridors no longer opened before him. Voices whispered as he passed, sometimes mocking, sometimes curious. And behind every laugh, every wry smile, he perceived a name that was thrown at him like an arrow. The Ground Guy. A humiliating nickname, but one that quickly took root. His former allies, those who once laughed at his jokes, began to turn away. Some, in low voices, criticized him. Others simply stopped speaking to him. Jason, the deposed king, became an invisible outcast. His place in the social hierarchy crumbled, melting like snow in the sun. The distance from friends. His best friend, Jaden Carter, was one of the first to feel this gap. The one who shared his jokes, his plans, his sporting victories, now seemed uncomfortable around him. When a local reporter, intrigued by the story that was shaking the school, came to interview him, Jaden could not hold back a frank look. Jason thought the school belonged to him. That nothing and no one could touch him. But Naomi showed him something else. That sometimes, intelligence and mastery are worth more than brute strength. He paused, then added, somewhat reluctantly. It's hard to see a friend fall, but it's true. Naomi, the involuntary icon. For her part, Naomi unwittingly became a figure of respect. The students who passed her in the corridors observed her differently. The murmurs were no longer tinged with mockery, but with quiet admiration. However, Naomi never sought to take advantage of this new aura. She refused envious or flattering looks. She remained the same, humble, focused, distant. When asked one day why she had not taken advantage of this victory to assert herself, she simply replied, "I didn't do this to be famous. Just so he would understand that you should never underestimate someone because they are quiet." Naomi hadn't hit anyone. She hadn't insulted anyone. She had simply defended herself. With control. With calm. With a precision that came not from a need to show off, but from a fundamental principle. We never let a tyrant crush others. And sometimes, all it takes is one day. With a single gesture. 10 seconds. For a tyrant to lose his entire crown.